years to embrace that, like, I can kill myself trying to get to the bottom of my piles. And even if I killed myself to get to the bottom of my piles, tomorrow there'll be more piles. It's fine. The emails can wait. You do not have to check them the second your eyes pop open in the morning.
Hey there. My name's Ashley Church.
And I'm Erin West.
We were once newly promoted crime scene and latent print supervisors on mutual struggle buses as we both simultaneously tried to navigate through the challenges within our forensic units.
Now we run a business where we create tools and resources that we wish we had had to make these transitions easier. We like to talk about the experiences we've had in the forensic field, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in the hopes to create awareness around these issues and move the needle forward to create positive change in the forensic community.
So if you're a forensic professional, regardless of your years of experience, who's not afraid to dive into real, raw, and sometimes uncomfortable topics, you're in the right place.
This is the Forensics Unfiltered podcast.
Hey, welcome. This is another episode of Taboo Topics. If this is the first time you've ever joined us for Taboo Topics, we focus on conversations that are maybe not had as much as they should be in the forensic field, and we just kind of want to bring that stuff to light. So tonight we'll be talking all about effects that the job can have on work-life balance, or like how it can affect your family as well. I don't even have like a set agenda of what we'll be discussing, so it's just going to be completely ad-lib tonight.
Where should we start?
What's that?
So where should we start?
Maybe we'll start on like family, because I think some of the stuff, like effects of the job, we got into it a little bit last week when we talked about burnout. So I think if we dive into like family stuff, I think that'd be good.
Family stuff.
So for the most part, I had like supportive family and a supportive husband, especially like they were very gracious whenever I would have to give up a lot of my time, or, you know, I was very limited on where I can travel just from being like that on-call life. Whereas I don't think some people get that type of support as much.
I married into the law enforcement family, so my husband definitely understands too when I get called out. But even with that level of understanding, like this past weekend, we had a homicide on Saturday. I got woken up at 6 a.m. and
which is early for Erin. She likes to sleep
so early for me. And I got up and I went out to that, and I got home around like 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. So I was gone all day. And my husband works midnights now, so we don't have a lot of time off together. So this past weekend happened to be one of the weekends that we had off together, and we could not spend it together because I was working. So even though he has a very thorough understanding of what it means to be, married to someone in forensics, it still impacts our family life, pretty significantly from time to time. I mean, it's not as extreme now that I'm a manager as it was when I was a CSI, getting called out all the time.
Yeah.
That's definitely get called out a lot less now, and only to major stuff, but it definitely impacted a lot of stuff for me as a CSI.
Yeah, I do remember like the early years, or if like you move to another agency, like now you're the lower man on the totem pole again.
Yeah.
And you have to sign up for all the damn holidays that no one else wants to work. So for several years, I was working like Thanksgiving over and over again, or Christmas over and over again.
My husband got it this year. He's a brand new sergeant on the road, so he got Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, and Halloween. He got every holiday. So, and that kind of goes with the territory too. But I will say, like, for me, that was one of the reasons why I transitioned into being a latent print examiner after several years of doing that, because I was very burnt out. I was getting called out, I think I got called out on Christmas Eve like 4 consecutive years running for homicides. Cause like, I mean, if you're in forensics, that crime goes up around the holidays. So you actually get busier. It doesn't slow down. So like 4 years running, I got called out on Christmas Eve, and we always have a big family event on Christmas Eve, and I had to miss it because I was working every year. Started to frustrate me. So I started to look for an area of forensics where I could work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And that was a lot of why I transitioned into Layton's out of crime scene. And there's a lot of areas of forensics where, if you really love the science, you can
go work in the lab and stuff. Yeah.
Areas, or even like periods of time in your life. I know there's a lot of like new moms out there who don't want to be on call while they have infants and toddlers. One of our girls just had twins, and she transitioned from forensics into the latent unit. She's a examiner, and that works better for her family, and sometimes the opposite happens. People's kids move out and they have more time and freedom, and so they don't mind being on call and stuff like that. So yeah, that was all part of my transitional, changing from crime scene to latents. That was a large reason why I did that, for sure.
Yeah, I had like, my immediate family was very understanding because we grew up with it. My dad works in the Florida State Park Service. So as long as I can remember, he was always on call, and he always had the holidays. So like it was a regular thing where he would have to get called out on Christmas Eve or open the park on Christmas and stuff like that. But my extended family, like, it was definitely guilt tripping. Like, can't you just swing it? Can't you just come by? Like, we lived in Orlando, and my grandmother lived in New Smyrna Beach. So it's about, like a 2-hour drive. And even if I'm on call, like, that's too far away. So I'm like, no, I can't make it. And it was definitely a little bit harder with the extended family. Like, definitely had the guilt trip going on. But I will say, like, something that I have not experienced, and I know other people may have gone through these hardships as well, is like having kids and being on call, especially when they get older. Like, I do remember, my dad having to miss some of our practices, or our games, or band concerts. Not all the time. He was there for most of them, but there were definitely events where, you just have to be understanding that, his job called and he can't be there. Like, I couldn't imagine right now having to sacrifice that with my own kids.
Well, even like the getting up in the middle of something and leaving, like,
yep.
I mean,
birthdays.
We don't have kids, but I can't imagine what it would be like to be at like your daughter's recital or something, and then to be like, mommy's got to leave. Like, kids don't understand that,
No.
So
I remember, like, it was a normal thing, but definitely growing up during those occasions, it's like, I'm understanding, but also like, damn, a little disappointed. So I do think that is something that's definitely hard for people to go through in this field. It's definitely a sacrifice that you're making for your family. And that's why I strongly feel that if you're going to require your positions to be on call, they should be compensated, because they are giving up a lot, even if they're not getting called out. Like, they're tethered to their phone, and they're constantly checking it and stuff like that. So,
well, even you can't even go far on the weekends. I mean, my husband's a sergeant now, but he was a detective. So before he was a sergeant, so he was on call and I was on call. And I've been on call for so long that I just like live my life, like, they'll call me if they need me, kind of thing,
Exactly.
And so I've never really like I'll still go out to eat. I'll go see a movie, even though I could get called out in the middle of a movie. Like, I'll still do all those kinds of things. And he like shuts down his world. Like we can't even go around the corner to the store because he might get called out.
I remember being like that at the beginning.
Yeah, a lot of people that are like that. Like, I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything because I'm on call and I have to sit here and wait all weekend. I think that just takes, time to get more seasoned, where you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna do my thing and like not be ridiculous, like drive 2 hours away, but like, you can go to the grocery store and you can go to lunch and whatever,
Definitely. I remember at the very beginning, I would basically not go anywhere.
Yeah.
I was always expecting the worst. And then after you've been on call for so many years, you're like, well, I gotta live my life. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta maintain these friendships and, relationships with my family. And, it is what it is. If they need me, they'll call and I'll be able to go. And it's not gonna be a big deal. But I think like not being able to be spontaneous too can affect you over a period of time. I mean, I know like if you have a partner that doesn't like to be spontaneous, maybe they're not like missing out on much, but I'm the partner that wants to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
So like, if I'm like, oh, do we have enough coverage this weekend? Who do I need to contact if I want to leave and go somewhere, even if I'm not on call? Even if I'm not on call. That's what like you truly don't understand until you live it, like how much it affects you. Because there are situations where it's like, well, I don't want to leave just the one person that's on call by themselves for the entire county if something were to blow up. So you start like tabling your life to help your coworkers out if something were to happen.
Yeah, we talk about it in our supervisor class too, because I worked CSI back when we carried pagers. So I carried a pager, a phone and a pager. And then after several years of doing that, I transitioned to be a latent examiner. And I did not realize how stressful that was until I got rid of it. And when I got rid of it, was like, oh my God, I had no idea how much that impacted me. Like those of you that are on call, you can hear that noise anywhere. Like you can hear that ringtone that you have for your call outs, like out in a public place or something, and that it sets you off immediately. Like it hits way down deep into your soul.
Yeah, I remember actually it was like we were talking about mental health, but it was a police officer. It was someone sworn. And they're like, yeah, I started going to therapy and I was explaining to my therapist, like when I hear that ringtone, my stomach sinks, my heart starts racing and I feel nauseous. And she's like, that's not normal, right? That's like anxiety. And you don't realize it, like you said, like whenever I finally turned in my on-call phone and gave my van back, like I did not understand how much an effect it had on me until I got rid of it.
Yeah. And I even too, for a while, like when I transitioned over to latents and the forensic team would get called out, I had that like FOMO for a little while where I was like, oh my gosh, I want to go with them. Like I miss doing all of those fun things.
Yeah.
And then they would be gone for like 8 hours and they would come back filthy and sweaty while I had been sitting in the office drinking my iced coffee. And I was like, you know what? I'm good. Good. I don't miss those days. So
yeah. I do like know that I've noticed some people that have family that's not as supportive.
Yeah.
Because like if I got called out, my husband's not gonna bother me. Like, he knows like I will give him updates as I can, as needed. But there are some people that have family or significant others or whatever that will like they'll be upset, number one, so they'll make them feel like they've done something wrong, and then they'll like constantly call them while they're on scene, and it's like, dude,
you realize I have to change my gloves every time I touch this phone?
Exactly. And like it's not that I blame that significant other. It definitely takes a certain amount of patience and tolerance to be married to someone that is in this field.
Yeah, that is for sure. When I worked at the lab in Virginia, I had to explain to my husband, 'cause we had to lock our cell phones outside the building. We weren't allowed to bring them into the building. So to check my text messages, I had to go through like 5 doors. Like I had to like disrobe out of a lab coat, take off my gloves, go through, from the lab into the place where we kept our lab clothes, into the main office, outside the building to check my text messages. And he would be like, really, you haven't texted back in like a couple hours? And like, you don't understand. So that's like, you don't understand. It's not an easy thing, but that's what a lot of people are going through with significant others when they disappear on a crime scene for 7 hours.
You never hear from them. Are you alive?
Yeah. They're working. They're doing gross stuff. They don't want to change their gloves right now to check their text messages.
Yeah. And whether we like it or not, it does affect them too. Like not just you not being there. I know like a lot of times I would call him and be like, waking him up. And he also has work the next day or whatever. Waking him up and be like, listen, I was just on a nasty decomp and I need you to meet me in the garage, like as I just, with a new set of clothes or like whatever, like a garbage bag to put my nasty clothes in and boots and stuff. And he would help me decon. So like it also affects them in that way too.
You stink, but I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's some people that love to be married to someone in this field because they just like hearing all of the stories.
Yeah.
And I definitely had some family members like that, but my husband was not one of them. He's like, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. Like,
you're like, no, that's a hard pass for me.
I think it traumatized him a little bit, and I was like, oh, he really does not like this.
Buddy, I don't know. I don't share too many stories with Jason. Jason is a little squeamish as well. So
even little things, he's like, oh, it's so gross. I'm like, I didn't get to the gross part yet.
Yeah, I know. I to tell now, I just call Ashley.
Yeah.
Still always appreciate them.
And like we've determined this is kind of like a Florida thing. So maybe if you're in a different state, you're gonna be like, what the hell? But in Florida, we also swapped a lot of penises. So, he also had to be comfortable with me doing that to other men as well.
This is taking a turn.
I mean, I'm just trying to cover all the bases.
It's true. They're really not penises that you want to touch in any way.
No,
He's
they're really not. I remember some of the swabs being like green, or like they haven't showered in like weeks, and the swabs would be black, and it's like, please get that away from me.
Tuesday at the office.
But yeah, when we tell like stories, people in other states are like, you do what?
Is that just us, not you guys?
At least we didn't have to be phlebotomists. I mean, there's some people that are drawing blood. Like, that is not what I signed up for. I signed up for dead people, not living people. Like, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. We were surprised. We went to a training class and they had trained their CSIs to do blood draws, so their CSIs would respond on and take blood for DUIs. Yeah. Oh no, thanks. That's a hard pass for me. I'll take.
Be like, okay,
Dead people.
not for me. They were really excited about it, though. I don't know. Maybe we should give it a try.
No, I don't.
I do like how some agencies have it set up. I mean, maybe I've never lived it, so who knows if I would actually like it, but I like the idea of having 24/7 coverage and you don't have any on-call. It's for sometimes it eliminates your take-home vehicle, so you kind of get that luxury taken away. But after being on call for so many years, I think I'd be okay.
Yeah, I like the idea of being done at the end of your shift and not having to worry about, being woken up in the middle of the night. So I like it.
Or interrupted, or like your plans derailed. I mean, there's still stuff that's going to derail your plans, like court. And I mean, you were at a depot today.
I did. I sure did. Ashley and I talk about this too. We talk a little bit about it in both of our classes, but we talk a lot about it in the supervisor class. Like we've talked about in this, some of the struggles of, working in forensics and, your family life. But as far as work-life balance, and you guys have probably heard us say this in some of these episodes as well, but it is really important because the job is going to take so much from you. You're going to pour so much into it, and you're going to get called out in your off time. And even if you're not a CSI, even if you're working in a lab or you're working in latents or whatever it is, you're still going to get called in your off time. They don't care that Monday's your day off if that's the day they need you for court. And then you'll sit there all day at the courthouse waiting to be called. And then they'll be like, oh, sorry, we need you tomorrow. And you will have eaten your whole entire day off sitting at the courthouse waiting to testify, because that is our life. So it really doesn't matter what discipline you're in. It will happen to you. But it's really, really vital to make your personal time your own. Like, I know so many people, we've talked about this in some of these other episodes, so many people that like take home reports because they got to get caught up or come in early. Yeah, they stay late. They're checking emails the second that they wake up in the morning before they even get into work. They watch the CAD screen and the call screen and they're off time, like waiting for calls to happen. Just put it down, put it away. It'll all be there tomorrow. And you taking your work home today to do reports today and your off time to get caught up. It's just,
that is something that you can control.
Yeah.
You can't control like getting called out or having to go to court. So hopefully like your family can understand that. But what will frustrate them is like you're sacrificing that, and then you're also like giving time away for free, and you're distracted. You're like checking the call screen, like she said, or checking your email, and it's like you could be spending that energy and that like time like geared towards yourself or towards your family. Like that time is precious, because like we mentioned before, you just don't know when you're going to be called into work. So do not give it up, give it away for the job.
Yeah. I think at this point in my career, I believe that doing stuff like that is a short-term solution, like bringing work home to type reports so that you can get caught up in the office. Like, I genuinely believe in my heart we'll never be caught up.
Yeah.
Like deep down.
And honestly, it's job security. So like
it took me years to embrace.
Yeah.
Years and years and years to embrace that, like, I can kill myself trying to get to the bottom of my piles. And even if I killed myself to get to the bottom of my piles, tomorrow there'll be more piles. Yeah. So taking your work home and trying to get caught up, and like we've said many times before, don't get us wrong. Sometimes things happen where you have to stay late, you have to work hard, you have to push through. We get that. Don't do it all the time. Don't do it every single day. Don't do it every single weekend you're taking home reports. It's fine. The emails can wait. You do not have to check them the second your eyes pop open in the morning.
Exactly.
Get to the office. So your time is valuable. Your time with your family is valuable. Use that time. Spend the time with your family and leave work alone.
But something that I also, I think I heard it on a podcast or read about it somewhere, you can get very frustrated or worked up or very affected by a case. And if you do have a partner like my husband that doesn't like to hear that stuff, or you don't want to bring all this negative, like I felt like sometimes I would just constantly be coming home and immediately just like start unloading on him. So what they suggest is to find some type of landmark on your way home and allow yourself to like just vent and scream or like pump up the music or whatever. And then once you hit this landmark on the way home, then you like shut it off. And that way, whenever you go into your home, you enter your home, you're not bringing all of that negative pent up energy to your household. I thought that was good advice. So as far as affecting your life, I think we've said a lot last week when we talked about burnouts, because that can definitely affect a lot of things. I think one of them too is just like your health in general and your mood.
Yeah, for sure.
I know at one point, it just depended what shift I was working or who had what days off, but I did get into a good rhythm whenever I worked night shift, and I had friends that were like, they really got into running and I got into running, and I was like working out a lot. And then there were times where it was really hard to fit in a workout on this particular shift. And it would have been nice to be able to, and we've talked about it before too, to like work out on shift.
Yep. And I even think too, I think as a CSI, you're a lot more active than you are in the other disciplines. And so when I transferred over to Layton's, and you sit there all day long, and a lot of the disciplines are like that, where you're sitting there all day, but you're engaging, like you are so focused, and the detail work that you're doing is so heavy. By the time I would get home from a job like that, I was exhausted. And I know it sounds ridiculous to think like you sat there all day. Why are you coming home exhausted? but like just
you don't know till you've done it, and
yeah,
it's just like, oh,
completely mentally drained. And I didn't even realize like how big of a transition that would be with going from forensics or like crime scene to latents, because crime scene was so active. You were always up and about doing stuff and out working scenes and stuff like that, and then transition to a job where you're sitting there for like 8 or 10 hours. So, you know, being conscious of your health in that too it can be very challenging for sure. The odd hours can be very challenging. Like, I know a lot of night shift people, you know, you can't go to the grocery store and grab a salad in the middle of the night. Like, the only stuff that's open is like shit places to eat. So you really have to be on top of like food preparation and all of that stuff if you're going to, you know, try to maintain healthy habits while you're while you're working midnights. So that's very hard, and it jacks up your whole sleep schedule, which is,
I mean, I'm more aware of it now, and like I actually care about it. But in my 20s, like if I had night shifts, I was not concerned about my vitamin D levels, you know, but it's a real thing. It's a real issue.
yeah. I mean, I worked 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. for a couple of years. So I would get home and I would go to sleep at like 8 in the morning, and then I would probably get up around like whatever, 3:34 to go to work. But my body knew that it was the middle of the day, and it would wake me up every day at like 11:30, 12 o'clock. I'd be like, oh, like trying to get back to sleep. And even like some of you guys might have this too. Like my supervisor, when I worked there, he worked day shifts. So he would have meetings with all of the supervisors that he supervised in the middle of the day. So all of those of us that were working night shift, like he would call a meeting at like noon or 1 o'clock. So you'd sleep for a few hours, you'd get up, come into the office for the 1 o'clock meeting, go home, like sleep for an hour, come back to work. Some of you guys might even have to deal with that. And even those kinds of sleep patterns with your spouse are so hard. That's so hard when you're working, like literally, like my husband and I right now, like we're like passing in the night, like bye, see you next week.
Waving at each other in the car.
He's working midnights and I'm working days. And that really, like, that can really take a toll on your relationship. Like, I think for he and I, because we're in law enforcement and we really understand that schedule and how that works and whatever, you know. And like, I have no question, like, what he's doing in the middle of the night. I feel like some spouses are maybe probably
issues. Yeah.
Yes, you know. But even that kind of stuff can have a lot of impact on your family and your marriage. Like, if we don't have kids, but if we had kids right now, I would be the primary
single mom.
Yeah, like a single mom. Yeah, because he would literally be sleeping during the day and working at night, and I would be the one that would have to maintain the house and everything with the kids and all of that, which some of you guys probably do. And that's a challenge in itself too.
So speaking of like lack of sleep and like driving, so I know we've talked about this as well, but I think this is an interesting thing to bring up that I think some people kind of don't think about or neglect it a little bit. Is I don't agree with, for crime scene, I don't know how it is for other forensics units, where you just like keep working until you know the scene is done. But like sometimes it'd be 36 hours and you're up that entire time, and hopefully you got woken up, but you may have also like completed an 8-hour shift, so like that now you're at 48 hours, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it's so dangerous.
Super dangerous.
I think I actually read somewhere, so if you're up for 24 hours, if you like, you know, even students, if you're studying for like and you're up for a full 24 hours, they say that driving after that is like driving under the influence of a blood alcohol level of 0.1. And this is just a normal thing.
I think anybody who's been a CSI for a minute has driven home from a scene, like blasting their air and smacking themselves in the face with the windows rolled down, like trying to stay awake on the way home. Like, that's not an
why is that a thing? Like,
yeah,
why are we doing
not
that?
An uncommon story that I've heard. I think that old school mentality of like, suck it up, buttercup, like we just push through till it's done. I think that's starting to die because people are seeing the impact of that. As a supervisor now, I would be a lot more conscious of those types of things. And I try to rotate people out of scenes, like, you know, you can go ahead and go home. Like, we don't need you here anymore. You've already been here, whatever. Like, we'll bring in someone fresh. Just trying to be conscious of that kind of stuff, because there is no reason why. And we're not doing good work after we've been awake for 24 hours, you know?
You're forgetting stuff, or you're getting fatigued. Like, I remember working those scenes and I'm like, please don't find one more piece of evidence. I can't do it.
Cry.
Like,
I'll literally cry if you find one.
I will literally cry right now if you tell me to dust one more counter. Like, I can't.
Well, and two, it always happens like the homicide guys, they go home and sleep, you know?
And then they come back out and they're like,
yes.
yeah, they find this other list of shit for you to do, and you're like,
they come out fresh in the morning and they're like, did anybody see that there? And you're like, oh God, no.
yeah, we're not doing our best work. Like, and it's super dangerous if you actually care about your personnel. Like, I don't care if you have to hold the scene, or if you have to get mutual aid from a different county or a different police department. Like, you have to do right by your people. And some of them will, like, you'll have to like push them out the door and be like, no, you need to go home and get some sleep. But I think that's the right thing to do. You don't want them to drive agency vehicles when, you know, there was times where I'm like, I don't even know how I got home.
Yeah.
You know, like the blasting of the air and turning up the music didn't even work, because like, I don't even know how I got home.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, as a forensic person, you don't want to, when you're out working a major scene or something like that, like, you don't want to take a break. You just want to push through and be there for the team the whole time. It's not necessary. If we're going to be here for 16 hours, y'all can sit down for 45 minutes in the air conditioning and eat a snack, you know?
Yes.
So, we try to, you know, as supervisors, try to make people like, go drink some water, sit in the air conditioning. Sometimes
that should be the function of the supervisor on scene.
Yes.
Like, you're not there to work the scene. You're there to make sure that your people have what they need. And if they need a damn break, then that's what they need. And then trying to think of like other effects that a job can have on you. Like you mentioned before, I think it's dying out, but it's still prevalent, where this mentality, like the agency owns you. And it's like that needs to also go away.
Yeah, like, don't get us wrong. Like,
we're workaholics. We
yeah,
love the job.
we do love to work. Yeah. And
yeah.
they can call you out. I mean, they could call me out right now and I'd be like, bye guys, I gotta go.
Yeah.
But you do still, like, we see a lot of people that will never take a day off. You know, they're banking all their time for whatever, some magical vacation that's going to happen 20 years from now. There's so many examples of like officers and people that retire, and they retire and they have no idea like how much stress their body was on, and then their body releases it all. And you hear stories about them like having heart attacks and stuff, like 2 weeks out into retirement, where they had all these huge plans and they never did anything because they were waiting till retirement, and then they pass away and they don't even get the chance to enjoy that life that they spent so much time, you know, pouring into work so that they could enjoy their retirement. Like, none of us, our retirements are not guaranteed. Not for all of us, you know, like, yeah, I hate to be that guy, but all of us won't make it there. So live your life while you can, because you don't know what's going to happen. So take a day off, take a vacation, go whatever, take the afternoon to see a show, take a mental health day. Like, it's all good. You work hard, so use that time and spend a little me time. Go get a massage. Yes.
All the things like you mentioned before, as far as like having a healthy work-life balance. If you're always like, look, I can't go to that wedding, I can't do this, I can't do that, and it's like, hold up, is it truly that you can't, or you feel guilty that you want to take vacation, or you feel like you need to devote your entire life to this job? Like, why can't you?
And I still literally, okay, so Saturday, I spent my whole day doing that homicide. Got up at 6, got home at 11. So what is that? That's 17 hours. 17 hours I worked that scene. So I don't make overtime at my level. I just eat any extra hours that I worked. But I asked my captain if I could flex Saturday and take off Monday. Oh my gosh. Like, and he could care less. He was like, yeah, sure, no problem. He saw me out there. He knew I was working. But me, I was like, oh, I feel like such a horrible person, like asking to take that time off instead of just eating the time. But like we had plans for the weekend for like projects that we were going to get knocked out in the house, and we didn't do that. And so even though it made me feel guilty, I still asked to do it, and it was good.
But I've definitely felt that too, where it's like,
Yeah.
I want to ask and I'm about to, and then sometimes I would just chicken out.
Yeah.
And not ask. But after like so many years, I'm like, okay, Ashley, you just need to suck it up and just ask. And it's usually like there wasn't any issue, but for whatever reason, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like supervision. Sometimes it's like coworkers where, you know, someone else asked off and you hear like all this coworker chatter, like, oh, can you believe her? Like just leaving us with only 2 people here today, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, then I don't want to ask off next time because I'm going to be the person they're talking about.
Yeah, I do still feel guilty about it sometimes, but you gotta do it. So
hopefully this was helpful. If you guys are going through things, if you wanted to run something by us based off of our own experiences, we would be happy to answer any of your questions in a private DM.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much for being here and listening to Forensics Unfiltered. If you liked this episode, would you do us a favor and leave a review letting us know specifically what you liked about this topic? It will only take a minute, but it will really help us plan future episodes so we can bring you more topics that you want to listen to. We'll be sure to provide any links from today's episode in our show notes on our website. Head to www.gapscience.com. Until next time, stay safe out there.